been running for days, months, possibly even years, running from fear, from heartbreak, from disappointment. And it's tiring, isn't it? You've borne burdens no one else notices, silent wars, sleepless nights, moments when you lay on your back looking up at the ceiling and ask yourself, why me? People around you perceive you as strong, but they have no idea about the nights you cried silently. They don't know how many times you've said, under your breath, God, I don't think I can do this anymore. And perhaps today, it seems like everything around you is breaking apart. The job, the relationships, your health, your hope, all trembling like an earthquake that won't abate. But here's the reality you must know. Even if the entire world caves in, even if all you built collapses, there remains a fortress that cannot fall, and that fortress is God himself. Psalm 46 is more than a verse. It's a lifeline. It's the anchor in the midst of the tempest raging to kill you. This is not another motivational speech. This is a rescue operation, and it's for you. When life crashes in around you, when the din of the world seems to be thundering in your ears, when all that you held to be true is beginning to shake, there is one thing you must hold fast to. God is your refuge. That term refuge is not poetic. It is pragmatic. It's not something you aspire to from afar. It's where you flee. A refuge is a place of safety from the tempest, a fortress into which you enter and close the door upon the confusion outside. When the burden of your situation is like to overwhelm you, when the terror within your own breast is like to burst, a refuge is where you take refuge, heal, and recover your strength. This is not pretending the storm is not out there. It's about having a sense of knowing you have somewhere to be, that the storm can't reach, and that somewhere is God himself. You may be in the middle of being unsure right now, wondering where to turn. You may be playing out 1,000 what-if scenarios in your mind, steeling yourself for the worst. But a refuge means you don't have to be in fight or flight status all the time. You don't have to be your own armor. You can walk into his presence and experience a peace that doesn't compute to the world you're living in. The walls of his sanctuary are not stone or steel. They're promises, vows that he won't leave you, that he won't abandon you, that he'll place his protection over you and guard your life. The thing about a refuge is that you have to go in it. God as your refuge doesn't mean you won't ever encounter tough stuff. It means that when you do run, you can run to him rather than running to fear, to worry, to independence, or to whatever momentary escape you believe will safeguard you. Refuge is not a passive concept. It's a thing you do. You run to it, you step in, you decide to say this storm is howling, but I'm not going to battle it out in the open. I'm going to battle it from the safety of the unmovable one. And here's the second strength. God is not only your safe place, he's your source of strength. He's not only where you run to feel safe, he's where you run to regain the strength to stand. Strength isn't about trying to act like you've got it all together. Strength is knowing you don't. And that's okay, because you're not supposed to do this alone. We love to imagine strength as being tough, unbreakable, unstoppable in our own strength. But that type of strength will inevitably break under enough pressure. Human strength depletes. God's strength never does. When the verse states, God is our strength, it's informing you that you don't have to create the energy, the courage, or the fortitude to do what's in front of you. His strength runs into your frailty. His power lifts you up when you can't take another step. This isn't motivational speech. This is supernatural fact. There will be times when literally you can't do it by yourself. You won't have the willpower, you won't have the emotional capacity, and that's where his strength comes in. It bridges the gap between what you can and what should be done. Strength is sometimes just getting out of bed when every fiber of your body wants to curl up and hide. At times it seems like picking up the phone to make the call, having the difficult conversation, or making the first step forward you've been hesitating to take. And when you think you can't, that's when you draw on his strength. It's like being connected to a supply that never grows depleted. Your feelings can change, your energy can flag, but his strength keeps going, boundless and accessible in each instant. And there's something you have to know about the blend of refuge and strength. They're intertwined. You flee to him for safety, and when you're in his presence, he makes you strong enough to deal with what's out there. You don't stay hidden forever. You hide to heal, you hide to restore. You hide to be built up again so that when you walk back out of the storm, you're bearing his strength with you. Safety without strength can equal isolation. Strength without safety can equal burnout. But with God you receive both. You are covered and you are armed. The reason that so many feel weighed down by the burdens of life is that they're attempting to be their own haven and their own source of power. They attempt to guard themselves, and they attempt to fuel themselves simultaneously, and it is draining. It is impossible. That's why people shatter. That's why they quit. But when you know you have a God who does both for you, who protects you from the brunt of the blow and who empowers you to continue, everything is different. You cease striving to do it all by yourself, and you begin leaning into the one who can. And the glory of this truth is that his strength and his refuge are unconditional. They have nothing to do with how good you've been this week. They don't disappear when you doubt. They don't dwindle when things get tough. They are as unmovable as he is. You can enter his refuge at any moment, in any location, in any state, and you will find his strength waiting for you there. He is always there, not occasionally there, not when life is good, not just when you sense him. Always, every moment, every breath, every heartbeat of your life, he is with you. That means never once have you taken a step by yourself, even when you were sure you had been left behind. It means that in the quiet, in the uproar, in the sorrow, in the triumph, in the wins, and in the defeats, he has been there, knowing every detail. Ever present means that there is no waiting for him to come. You don't have to plead with him to pay attention. You don't have to wait for him to arrive like he's late. He was already present before the issue came up. Think about that for a moment. The thing you're scared of right now, the thing you don't know how to handle, the thing keeping you awake at night, he already knows about it. He's already in it. He's not on his way. He's here. The presence of God is not something you have to earn with perfect faith or flawless behavior. It's not a reward for getting it all right. It's an oath sworn by who he is rather than by what you do. When he promises to be with you always, he means in the good times and the bad, in your greatest faith and your most feeble doubt. The thing is, when life gets really bad, we tend to forget to seek him out. We begin behaving as if we are alone, as if it is all up to us, as if we are bearing it alone. We freak out, we overanalyze, we become obsessed with what lies ahead and forget who stands alongside us. The fact is, though, his presence doesn't shift when our consciousness does. Even when you aren't paying attention, he's there. Even when you're far away, he's near. Ever present equals always there. It means loyal. It means there's never a space between your need and his closeness. When you understand this, it shifts the way you approach trouble. You get out of praying desperate God, please come prayers, and you begin praying God, thank you that you're already here prayers. You get out of worrying that you have to live long enough for him to show up, and you begin to know he's already been leading you through the fire. This knowledge doesn't take the storm away, but it totally shifts the way you stand in it. And the thing is, when you know he's always with you, fear becomes powerless. Fear loves to work in solitude. Fear develops in the assumption that you are alone. Fear feeds in the belief that no one gets it and no one can assist you. But the day you understand you are never alone, fear begins to lose strength. It can't maintain the same hold when you realize that the Almighty literally is present with you, looking after you, leading you, and making you strong in the real time. Fear will whisper, you're going to fail. But God's presence responds, I'm with you. You will. Fear will indicate to you the magnitude of the wave. God's presence reminds you who rules the seas. Fear will instruct you to flee, to conceal yourself, to shrink. His presence invites you to stand, to trust, to move forward. When you really do believe he is present everywhere, you begin making decisions out of faith rather than fear. You cease to let the what-ifs control your direction and begin to let his word guide your next step. You cease to let panic dictate your actions and begin to let his peace direct your steps. This is why the verse states that he is an ever-present help in trouble. Not merely present and assisting. He is actively involved, not merely observed. And that's where fear really loses its grip. Because if the God who cannot fail is both with you and assisting you, then what in the world is there to be afraid of? The existence of God isn't a fuzzy, uplifting concept. It's an actual life changer in the way you exist. Inhale, and you know you can go into the meeting, into the hospital room, into the conversation, into the unknown, with assurance not due to your own skill, but because you are not going in alone. Faith begins where fear is supplanted. Fear and faith can't coexist on the throne of your heart together. One will be out. The more you dwell on His presence, the more faith increases. The more faith increases, the less fear feels. You begin to see that the same issues that once overwhelmed you now seem different. Not because they've changed, but because you have. Your thinking has changed. You view them in the light of His presence and His assistance, not in the light of your own ability. Fear tells you, you're not enough. Faith tells you, that's all right, He is. Fear tells you, this will crush you. Faith tells you, He will get me through. Fear tells you, there's no way. Faith tells you, there's always a way when He's with me. When fear attempts to immobilize you, faith brings you movement. Fear contains you in the worst-case situation. Faith displays to you the God-sized result. Fear concentrates on your deficiency. Faith concentrates on His power. This isn't about disregarding peril or fantasizing challenges away. It's about understanding that peril and challenge don't have the final word. His presence does. His assistance does. When you live with the knowledge that God is always with you and that fear has no substance to control you, you move differently, you talk differently, you hold yourself with a quiet confidence that can't be manufactured because it isn't based on you, it's based on, you don't have to scream it out, you just know. You don't have to know everything. You just know who's beside you. This is the liberty that results when you actually allow His omnipresent assistance take the place of fear. You cease to steel yourself for calamity and begin to anticipate His goodness. You cease to peer around the corner for the next onslaught and begin to peer ahead to the next miracle. You cease to live small and begin to step into the life He's called you to live, not because it's easy, but because you know you're not doing it alone. Even if the world crumbles around you, God is still there. That's the kind of truth you can stake your whole life on. We're talking about the kind of solidity that exists when everything else is in flux, the kind of foundation that doesn't break when everything else is crashing down. People change, seasons change, the economy changes, relationships change, health changes, but God does. You might lose all means of security you ever had, and He would remain unchanged. You might see your entire world crumble before your eyes and He would remain standing, remain loyal, remain who He said He would be. This isn't simply a reassuring concept, it's a staying alive fact, because the world is going to fall apart at some point. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Dreams will collapse. Plans will be disrupted. People will let you down. Life will go in directions you didn't expect. You can act like that won't occur, or you can prepare your heart now to recall the only thing that doesn't fluctuate: God's presence, God's power, and God's love. Consider the mountains of this verse. Things that appear so solid, so firm, so immovable. The Word presents this image of even such mountains tumbling into the depths of the sea, an image of utter destruction, and yet the command is not to be afraid. Why? Because no matter what tumbles, He stays. If your trust is based on something which can be shaken, then the shaking will tear you down. But if your trust is based on Him, then no shaking can bring you down. We spend so much of our time trying to keep everything intact, trying to make the mountains stay up, trying not to let the ground break. But the fact is, some things are going to collapse, and that isn't the end of the story. The end of the story is that God does not change. When He is your anchor, you will weather any storm, for your safety is not based on the storm ceasing to rage. It's based on the anchor holding. And the anchor always holds. This is where we must stop trying to gauge our stability by our situation. If your peace is based on things going well, then your peace will vanish the moment the waves rise. If your peace and joy are attached to everything running smoothly, then your peace and joy will disintegrate the moment life gets messy. But if your peace and joy are attached to Him, the one who remains the same, they remain even when all else departs. That's the miracle of having your life based upon something that's eternal, rather than something that's temporary. And here's the truth. The breakdown doesn't frighten him. The catastrophe doesn't catch him off guard. He's not frantically searching for a plan B for your life. He already knew it was coming, and he already has the power, the means, and the strategy to get you through. You don't know what's next, but he does. You don't see a way out, but he already prepared it. Chaos is not in charge. God is. That's a fact that will alter the way you breathe. It will alter the way you glance at the headlines, the way you meet bad news, the way you walk into the unknown. Chaos appears powerful because it's boisterous, it's unpredictable, and it shakes the earth beneath your feet. But it's not the one wielding power. God is. The storm may roar and the waves may crash, but they all still respond to him. We all have had those moments where it just seemed like life was spinning out of control. No matter how hard you might try to stop the free fall, maybe you can't. Maybe you are there right now. Maybe that phone call came, the report came, the letter came, and the bottom dropped out from under you. It's in the midst of that you need to recall, chaos is not controlling your life. It may be the commotion you see, but it's not the control over you. The control rests with the one who sits above it. The reason why chaos seems so overwhelming is because it makes you think that nothing is definite anymore. But there is one thing that is supremely definite. God is sovereign. That is a word that says he rules. He reigns. He is not merely standing by and watching. He is actively keeping the universe intact. Every single thing that moves in your life is under his observation. It doesn't say everything that occurs is good, but it does say nothing that occurs is beyond his ability to make it better. And this is where viewpoint turns the entire thing around. When you think chaos is reigning, you live in crisis mode. You're always responding, always tensing up, always on the edge. But when you think God is reigning, you operate differently. You're calmer. You respond rather than react. You can endure a crisis without being a crisis yourself. You can look at the storm without letting it hijack your mind. Chaos may touch your situation, but it cannot control your destiny when God is your source. The waves may toss you over, but they cannot drown you when your life is anchored to him. The fire may engulf you, but it cannot burn you when he's in the fire with you. That's why the Bible can say to you, don't be afraid even when the earth collapses, because the one gripping the earth is gripping you. The issue is, we tend to give chaos way too much power. We play along like it's the determinant, like it gets to pen the final chapter of our book. But chaos only possesses the power you allow it to have in your head. When you allow God's truth to occupy a larger place in your heart than the commotion outside, chaos loses its hold. You begin to see it for what it truly is: fleeting. Louder, yes. Intimidating, yes. Yet fleeting. God's power, however, is eternal. And if you're wondering how you're supposed to live with that sort of confidence when the world seems to be falling apart, it all comes down to one thing: trust. Trust that he's bigger than what you see. Trust that his plan is still working out even when yours has been destroyed. Trust that his control isn't shaken by the same things that are shaking you. Trust his power to make good out of the chaos greater than the chaos itself. When you realize this far down in your soul, that no matter if the world falls apart, God still exists, and that destruction isn't running things, you no longer fear the falling apart. You no longer try to run ahead of it, and you begin walking through it in faith. You don't need to have everything figured out, because you know the one who does. You don't need to keep it all together, because you know the one who already is. Your view defines your reality. Two individuals can experience the same situation, the same challenge, the same set of facts, and end up with entirely different experiences, just due to how they perceive it. Perspective is the lens you use to filter everything in life, and if that lens is drenched in fear, hopelessness, and doubt, then everything will appear darker than it actually is. But if we cover that lens with faith, thanksgiving, and trust in God, then even in the toughest times you'll find possibility, purpose, and hope. The risk is, most of us are not even aware how much our view is controlling how we feel. We believe the problem is the problem, but oftentimes the way we are looking at it is the actual problem. If you keep on telling yourself, this is the end, this is impossible, this is too big for me, naturally you're going to feel defeated. Your mind will either hold you back or liberate you. And if your line of thinking is limited only to what you observe in the natural, it will always remain limited. But when you decide to view your life based on the reality of who God is and what He said, suddenly the boundaries collapse. Perspective does not involve denial of the pain. It does not involve ignoring reality. It involves accepting reality and then incorporating God into the mix. The facts may say the situation is bad, but your perspective rooted in faith says, yes, but God is bigger. The facts may say you're outnumbered, but your perspective says, yes, but the Lord fights for me. The facts may say it's over, but your perspective says, yes, but He makes a way where there is no way. This is the reason that the enemy attacks your viewpoint before he attacks anything else. If he can cause you to perceive your life through the eyes of defeat, he doesn't even need to take anything away from you. You'll surrender it yourself. But when you protect your view and discipline it to be in line with God's truth, you begin to live out of a place of victory before the war is won. You begin to see challenges as chances, setbacks as setups, delays as preparation. You begin to have faith that what's against you can't stop what God has for you. And when you change your view, your reality begins to change too. Not because your situation has changed yet, but because your reaction to it has. You cease to be ruled by fear and begin to be motivated by faith. You cease to look at the storm as being the end of you and begin to look at it as the site where God will demonstrate His power. And here's the thing, your mindset is a choice. You don't necessarily have control of what's happening, but you always have control of your perspective. God works in the midst of the storm. We tend to pray for the storm to subside, for the waves to become still, for the wind to cease. But time and time again in the scripture, we read that God doesn't always take away the storm right away. Occasionally He quiets it, but occasionally He decides to show Himself right in the middle of it. We desire rescue, but He desires relationship. We desire escape, but He desires transformation. And oftentimes in the middle of the turmoil is where we witness His power most clearly. The storm doesn't indicate that He is not there. In fact, the storm could be the exact place where you sense His presence most. When the waters are still, we forget how desperately we require Him. But when the waves are breaking, we draw in closer. We pay closer attention. We grasp Him with both hands, rather than half-heartedly accepting Him. And in that space, in the midst of what feels scary and unknown, He appears in ways that leave no question it was Him. We would rather imagine that faith flourishes in comfort, but it does. Faith flourishes when it is tested. And the storm is the test. It makes you choose whether or not you believe what you see or believe what He has said. It removes the false securities so you can hold on to the only true security. It strips away the fantasy of control and teaches you to rely entirely on the one who does. At other times, the storm is the stage. God leads you into situations where the odds are stacked against you so that when you emerge on the other side, everyone will know it wasn't your strength, it wasn't your plan, it wasn't your resources, it was Him. The miracle is not that the storm ceases, but that you remain standing in the middle of it. The testimony is not that you lived, but that you became stronger, more loyal and more sensitive to His power because of it. When you begin to look at storms like these, not merely as threats, but as opportunities to witness God's hand, everything about how you weather them begins to shift. You cease to expend energy wondering why me, and begin to wonder, what are you revealing to me? You cease to struggle to escape at all costs, and begin to lean into what He's attempting to construct within you right there in the middle. Because sometimes the breakthrough does not occur when the storm dissipates. Sometimes the breakthrough occurs in the middle, when your mindset changes and your faith intensifies. It's also a good thing to recall that storms pass, but the strength you obtain for enduring them is eternal. Each storm you have ever endured has passed. You've lived through 100% of your worst days to date, and the God who carried you through those will carry you through this one as well. The storm might be howling presently, but it has an expiration date. God's work with you, though, will continue long after the storm clouds pass. If you realize God works In the midst of the storm, you no longer freak out with the appearance of the initial dark cloud. You begin preparing your heart rather than merely safeguarding your comfort. You tell yourself, if he's letting me step into this, he's already mapped my way out. And if he's not taking me out yet, then there's something in this storm I'm supposed to gain before I leave. That type of attitude doesn't just get through storms, it gets better because of them. It makes every fight a classroom and every failure an advance for something greater. Be still and trust his sovereignty. Those are easy sounding words, but hard ones to live out. Because stillness does not equate with doing nothing. It means resting in the knowledge that God is working the situation even when you can't see it. We have a culture that says go faster, push harder, and do it all yourself. So the concept of stillness feels foreign, even irresponsible. But stillness has nothing to do with laziness or passivity. It's about surrender. It's about removing your hands from the wheel and saying, God, I trust you more than I trust my own understanding. It's about deciding to quit trying to control and instead lean into the reality that he already does control. Stillness takes faith because it makes you do the opposite of what your instincts are telling you. Your reflex is to fix it in the moment, to push an answer, to keep going so that you can feel like you're accomplishing something. But quietness makes you face the reality that not all things are yours to repair. Some things demand patience. Some things demand waiting for God's timing. Some things are too large for your hands and need to remain in. When you can really still, it's an indication that you do believe his sovereignty is actual, that you do believe he is seeing the larger picture, that you do believe he knows what he's doing. It's in the still times God's voice comes through the loud. When you cease to run around in circles and finally quiet your heart, you create room for his voice to come through above the noise. Silence enables you to hear the direction, the encouragement, and the wisdom you've not been too busy to see. And it's in that midst of quiet trust that your soul finds peace even when your circumstances are still unresolved. Because peace isn't the lack of problems, it's the presence of God right in the midst of them. To trust his sovereignty is to believe that nothing in your life is an accident. It is to believe that each detail, each delay, each door closed, each door opened, each detour is in his sight. It's the faith that he is not responding to your situation, he's directing it. You don't know why you're where you are, but faith in his sovereignty holds you to the fact that he's not guessing, he's leading. He looks at the end from the start and he knows precisely how to take you where you're supposed to go. And that's the truth. Trust is established in the waiting. Anybody can say they trust God when everything is going as it should. But true trust is tested when nothing adds up, when the timeline has come apart, when the end is unclear and you still decide to say, I believe you've got this. That is the kind of trust that shifts mountains in your heart even before the mountains of your life shift. This is where faith and action intersect. Because standing still is an action. It's not inactive. It's a purposeful choice to overcome panic and lean into faith. It's a choice not to go ahead of God's timing. It's a choice not to control the end just to have a phony sense of security. And it's a choice to put your energy into pursuing him rather than trying to fix all of it in your own mind. Standing strong because this trial will make your faith rock solid is the natural outworking of trusting his sovereignty. Trials have a way of rattling all that's not securely grounded. They reveal what we've been They take away the delusions of stability and compel us to observe where our hope is really fixed. When the world around you is shaking and you're standing, that's when you know your faith is fixed on something concrete. An unshakable faith isn't constructed in comfort. It's tempered in fire. It's purified in seasons when you're being pushed to your breaking point and somehow manage to keep moving because you've mastered the art of leaning on God more than yourself. Each trial you go through is a chance for your faith to develop roots so deep that no wind can blow it out. The enemy can attempt to knock you down, but when your faith is rooted in who God is, you can bend but you won't break. Standing up doesn't mean that you don't feel the weight of what you're experiencing. It doesn't mean that you don't cry or question or struggle. It means you stake your feet in the truth of God's word and will not be shaken from it, no matter how turbulent the waters become. It means you make a decision up front that your faith is not for sale, not negotiable, and not based on your circumstances. It's based on the firm nature of God, and that's why it lasts. When you look back at your life, you'll see that the seasons that hurt the most were the seasons that strengthened you the most. The strength you hold within you now did not come from good days. It came from making it through the days that seemed impossible. And the more you have watched God bring you through, the stronger your faith becomes. You no longer doubt whether he will show up because you've seen him too many times to wonder. This is why the trial you're in now is not just an obstacle, it's an investment. God is using it to deepen your roots, to strengthen your resolve, to fortify your faith so that when the next storm comes, you'll stand even taller. He's not wasting a single tear, a single disappointment, or a single moment of pain. Each and every part of it is molding you into a person who can bear more, believe more, and trust more. And an unwavering faith becomes a testimony as well. Others around you are going to see that you weather storms in a different way. They're going to watch you walk through the same flames that they've watched consume other people, and they're going to marvel at how you can still stand. And that's when you gesture backward to the one who's been supporting you all along. Your toughness becomes evidence of his strength. Your stability becomes a testament to his loyalty. When you choose to remain quiet and trust his sovereignty, you're not dodging the trial, you're facing it with a strength that doesn't derive from you. And when you select to stand your ground, you're making it known that no matter how difficult it becomes, your faith will not be going anywhere. This is the way trials will make you what you are. This is the way seasons of doubt become seasons of growth. This is how you emerge from the fire not weaker but strong, with a faith that cannot be shaken. We've spoken of refuge, the spot where fear loses its hold. We've spoken of strength, the kind that you can't produce on your own. We've spoken of his presence, not as a concept, but as a living God who stands in your storm. We've weathered the reality that the earth will shake, chaos will rage, uncertainty will threaten to engulf us. But we've also weathered the higher truth. God remains in control. He is your haven when the world is unsafe. He is your strength when you are weak. He is with you when all others depart. So the question isn't whether you'll endure storms. You will. The question is, will you weather them alone? Or will you enter into the fortress that will never fall? Undefined. If this hit home, it's because it was intended for you. Don't just scroll on by, cling to this truth. God is your refuge. God is your strength. The storm isn't the end of your story, it's the place where your faith becomes unshakable.